Boutique Hotel Nation, welcome in for another great episode of the unofficial Boutique Hotel Secrets podcast. I'm your host, Adam Walz. On this show, what we do is we talk about stories, lessons learned. We try and spill all the sauce on moving from the world of short-term rentals into the space of commercial boutique hotels. It's not just me, thankfully. So let me bring in my co-host, Micah Thomas, my Mister from another sister. How you doing, brother?
Doing good. Yet another day and what these people call paradise.
Oof.
Things are going great. I think I'm delirious at this point. I'm happy, I'm overjoyed, and somehow nervous about everything that's going on. Today is officially the day after our money went hard.
Oof.
So we have 50,000 more reasons why we need to close on this deal. So, things are going good. I'm very confident, but there's definitely a mindset shift and a little bit more severity in getting the deal done once you hit that deadline and the money goes hard. So, no, I'm just
Yep.
pushing right along.
I love it. I love it. Well, let's back up for a second and maybe talk about that because I think, again, let's imagine we're recording this and delivering this to ourselves in the past, or let's imagine 3 months from now, somebody who's got a small portfolio of Airbnbs, they hear about this space, they're interested in this space, and they get under contract on their first boutique hotel. But again, maybe they're finding there's some challenges in 2026 or beyond on getting debt. Maybe they find it challenging to raise money for the first time. I think these are very normal things, normal challenges for people trying to make this jump. And all of a sudden, right, we had 120 days from our purchase sale agreement to close with an option of up to 30 days in case we needed it for SBA lending and all of that. So anyways, October 20th marked the official halfway point. And as you mentioned, we had $50,000 in earnest money that went hard at industry term. Basically, all that means is it's non-refundable. We could have walked away on the 19th or the 20th and said, we gave it our all. We tried really hard. We liked the deal, but we just couldn't put together the debt and the capital, the equity. And so we're backing out. But we made a decision to stay in. And again, it's been first couple months exciting. And then there's some weeks that have just been brutal. Again, we've been told no a lot. At one point, we thought we had the debt in place. We thought we had the equity in place. We thought we were days away from closing, and then the whole castle fell down. So again, I think if we're trying to give advice or maybe talk about our story or how it could be relevant to someone else, it's very likely you might be facing this decision of you've got $20,000, $50,000. I mean, at the higher end with institutional deals, if you're chasing a multi-billion-dollar project, this could be hundreds of millions of dollars on the line that becomes non-refundable. So, Micah, maybe back to you. What were some of the emotions? Again, we've had some kind of pretty frank conversations about if we need to think about backing out versus keeping the faith. So, again, let's maybe dive in here just on this critical moment in time where your earnest money goes hard.
Yeah. I'll go back, even to last week, especially at the beginning of last week. I was not in the best of spirits, just a little bit nervous, worried, especially if you don't have clarity on enough things or everything. It makes you wonder, is this a safe place to back out, or do we continue to move forward and have conviction and belief in ourselves and our capabilities to get this deal done? So a big part of that was really just the mindset, knowing that everything we've done in the past has gotten us to this point, and we have the ability and we will get this deal done. So, as the week progressed, as we had more conversations, as Adam, you and I had more candid conversations, I gained the level of confidence I would say that I needed, and to put me in the headspace to say, it doesn't matter that our money is going hard. That's just a timeline, but we intended for the money to go hard all along because that's what happens in order to get the deal done. So nonetheless, it was a little bit nerve-wracking. That money is real at the end of the day, and if the deal doesn't get done, we can't get that money back. So there's definitely a conversation that we had to have to make sure we were still in this together. We both believe that we can get this deal done. Kind of talk through plan A, plan B, even plan C, what that looks like just in case A or B didn't come true. So
Yeah.
definitely confident this week, and I would say I'm even more confident on the other side of the money going hard, just because I know the belief we put in one another and into the deal, and just the sheer effort we've put into getting this deal done. So yeah, that's kind of where I am with that, but it's definitely a hard decision that you have to make.
Yeah, and I think at least for me, critical turning points in your life, I mean, big decisions, big money on the line, hopefully you've got a little board of advisors, a little board of directors around you. So I know that, I mean, I talked with my wife, talked with Isaac, I talked with Joel, right? I mean, talk with friends in my world and kind of share my story, whether I'm at the gym or I'm on a walk, and just kind of like try and get some emotional support and just some validation that this is the right path, or some critical questions, by the way, right? Because again, you can have all the belief in the world and you could be wrong. You could be jumping off of a diving pool into a pool with no water, and you could get messed up. So, again, we're kind of at the starter end, let's call it, of boutique hotels, kind of 3 to 5 million bucks. But you can imagine as the stakes raise, right? If this were a $10 million, $25 million, $100 million deal, it's the same exact physics, right? Of again, you're working on both the debt and the equity. You probably have parts of it. You probably are going to have some no's. You're going to have some challenges along the way. So how can you get that emotional support to kind of help you carry through? But there's this interesting tension, right? Like as an entrepreneur, you need to be a little bit disillusioned, like a little bit drinking the Kool-Aid, believing in something that's not true, that's objective. You have to divorce yourself from reality, and that feels really risky. So again, you don't want to be reckless. You don't want to put yourself, your family in jeopardy, your reputation, your ego. Like there's so many things that want me to say yes and move forward. But if I'm seeing enough red flags and enough other people are saying no, like I want to pay attention to that. I need to pay attention to that. So, anyways, all that to say, like it's been a roller coaster like the last couple weeks. But I would say this is like, I don't know, it's like a conviction test. It's like a little milestone. To me, this reminds me of the movie back in the 80s, Indiana Jones. And was it the Raiders of the Lost Ark or Temples? Someone's gonna like rage me in the
I
comments.
think it is Raiders of the Lost Ark. I'm not
I think
sure.
I think maybe Raiders, right? Right. But there's like one scene in the movie where again, he comes out and there's a huge chasm. And again, in order to get across, he needs to trust that the path is there. So they end up kind of blowing dirt on it or something like that. They can kind of see the path, but he walks across this invisible bridge to the other side. And of course, so many people probably got to that point in the story and just turned around and just said, shit, there's no way to do this. I'm going back. I'm going to go get a coffee. I'm going to go lay down, take a nap, like think about this. We'll regroup. We'll do this later. So, anyways, I think this is a massive conviction test point for everyone in this journey where your money goes hard on a deal and all the puzzle pieces are not solved. So, anyways, that's a little bit of like our story and where we're at or kind of updates. But anything else you think that would be helpful to share with people that, again, let's imagine we're talking to one or two people, their money is going hard next week. Is there anything that you would advise them to think through so that they could make a good decision, a high quality decision, whether it is to continue forward or to potentially back out?
Yeah, and I think you have to do a risk analysis. Look at everything you've done up until the point where you're until your money goes hard, right? What does the debt look like? What does the equity side look like? What does the due diligence up to this point look like? Do you have support from the seller? Do you have support from your investors or the bank? So it's every situation will look totally different, but you have to be real with yourself. And sometimes being real means even though you've invested money into an inspection report or an appraisal or whatever, the SEC attorney or your real estate attorney, no matter what it is, you may have to walk away, because walking away from a bad deal is so much better than walking into something where you lose 10 times, 100 times the amount of money in the long run. So you have to really analyze what you have going on and then weigh the pros, the cons. Definitely speak with your support system, your committee, so to speak, to make the best decision. But if you believe deep down in your heart that the numbers make sense, you've done your due diligence, you've done a solid amount of underwriting, and people have looked over your shoulder and said, this all makes sense, all your assumptions make sense, then you have to push forward. You have to believe in yourself that you can get this done, and you need to push forward to do so. So, I mean, it's hard. It's a lot easier to say than to do. It's uncomfortable, but no one ever grew being comfortable as well, right?
Yeah.
If we just did what was comfortable and, what was easy, we would be in the same place that we're at today. And that's, I know, just like me, you don't want to be in that position. So it's just another step in our journey of growth. So I would definitely give that word of advice.
Yeah, that's great. And maybe we can give an update to folks on kind of like our debt and equity and just kind of where we're at. Again, we're recording this in October. Our plan is to publish this or release this closer to probably December when when we're sure that we've got a hotel. Otherwise, it's like, why am I listening to these guys fail and bumble around in the dark? But again, our whole thinking here is that we can document our progress, other students' progress, our coaches who own, a dozen hotels, we can all share our stories about where we're at, what the feelings and emotions and the thought process was as we go through it. Because again, if I'm listening to a guy who's got 27 hotels like Vinny Chopra, like it's tough for him to relate or remember what it was like to be at zero. So anyways, I love meeting people in this industry. We're learning every single day. But I remember a couple episodes ago, we were looking at doing like a sub two or some creative financing. We were going to take over payments on the existing mortgage because we got told no, like 50 or 60 times from banks that they just wouldn't give us money. They said hospitality is kind of out right now. We got burned in COVID. This is in a pretty small tertiary market. It's unflagged or unbranded, so it's not a Marriott or a Hilton or a Hyatt. And again, you guys are first time operators, and it's lost money the last 3 to 5 years. Like, how do we know you guys aren't going to step into this thing and not be able to turn this thing around? So, lots of banks, for very good reasons, looking in the rearview mirror, said no to this deal. But again, was it last week? I think, Micah, we got our first term sheet to the tune of just under $4 million, where, again, they've taken it to their credit committee. Everything's positive. We're getting thumbs up. So again, this feels good. Like we got to turn this from an LOI, a letter of intent, into a commitment letter. And still, stuff could still go crazy, right? It's a dynamic, ever changing world. I don't know. Do you want to talk a little bit about, one of our concerns at this point is this is still an SBA product. And right now, as if we recording this, the US government is shut down.
That's exactly right. So if my counting serves me well, and I believe it does, we have talked to something of the tune of 65 lenders, and we have gotten 64 no's. So that makes you feel great about what you're doing, right? If you don't have conviction in your vision and your numbers, then you could say, hold on, if they don't believe in me, how can I believe in myself? All in all, we've talked to them. They've said no for a ton of reasons, mostly being because this is a tertiary market, unflagged hotel, so the independent or boutique hotel poses more of a risk to lenders, and the property is currently negative cash flowing. These are all great reasons why an independent boutique hotel operator would want to buy a property and turn it around, but for the bank looking at us, that poses a very big risk. Yeah, it's been a journey. We've had to be very persistent. I mean, we've faced quite the amount of adversity. We've submitted our documents to more lenders than I can count, but all in all, you just keep pushing, and all we need is one yes, and we've arrived at that one yes. So I'm very happy to have a term sheet, very happy to push forward and get that letter of commitment from this lender. But like you said, this is an SBA product. This is an SBA 7A product, by the way, and we're looking to get this loan done, but the loan can't be completed until the government gets out of shutdown. So we spoke with the senior vice president. He seems to think the lockdown won't last another 30 days, but there's things we have to deal with. So I'm confident that at some point in time, the government will reopen. It's inevitable. It's just a matter of how long we have to wait, and we'll get this deal across the finish line and still have enough time and runway before we run out of contractual time, I'd say. So I would say that's the great news. Do you want to touch on maybe the other side? What we've heard from some capital groups and, kind of their thoughts and processes as far as underwriting our deal and looking through our documents and so forth.
Yep, yep. Yeah, and I guess at this point, we'll maybe be careful not to reveal everyone that we're talking to, but we
Of
talked with
course.
some great folks that, again, have lent their time, their expertise. And again, first blush, like the first guys we talked to, it was a 15-minute conversation that turned into 2 hours, to then turned into a second meeting, and then a third meeting, and then a fourth meeting. And so they're not just kicking the tires, like they're getting in the car and taking it for a test drive. And they're talking with other people about it. And I think in both cases, both groups, one very large institutional capital, one a little bit smaller, but definitely they've got track record, expertise. They've raised capital before. And so again, we were talking about, let's say we get $4 million of debt. Great. We think our all-in project costs now are probably to the tune of 5.9. And again, that's roughly $2 million of renovation and repositioning, maybe 300K plus or minus for working capital, so we don't run out of money in the first 6 months. And then just some project fees. So again, Mike and I can put some, dinner on the table, and kind of reward the hundreds of hours that have gone into this to this date. So there's some fees as well. But, again, um, I would say that both of these groups looked at it, they liked it, but for different reasons, this wasn't right for them. And I think, maybe you can talk about one and I can talk about one. The first set of, like, let's call them just a capital group, again, the invitation was literally like, okay, Micah and I, this is the first time we're doing it. We're in this mastermind. We're getting advice, guidance, playbooks, underwriting sheets. We've got coaches, Rashmi, Joel, Isaac looking over our shoulders. That's super helpful. So we're less interested in just like general guidance. We need somebody to come in and basically sit as GPs with us and help us finish out kind of the capital raising, lock in the debt, and then just make sure that we get through operations and kind of stabilize in a smooth fashion. And so for this first group, more the smaller boutique hotel group, it just really came down to underwriting assumptions. And again, they put in more conservative assumptions. They were trying to reverse engineer into kind of a 20% IRR, 2.5 to 3x equity multiple. And they're taking a look at all the levers. But at the end of the day, just weren't comfortable. This particular person who spent the most time thought that we were right, that we could outpace the market with our ADR, our average daily rates. So again, if the Hampton Inn or the La Quinta or the Home 2 Suites, maybe they're selling for $165 on a given night, we could probably be 175, 185, right? So we can beat them on the daily rate, but he thought we'd probably lose on occupancy, that there'd be enough people kind of either looking for budget travel or there's just comfort and consistency with the flag going, or maybe I even have some Holiday Inn points or some Hilton or Marriott or Hyatt points, right? I get some points through my credit card or other purchases, and I want to stay at a brand that I trust. So he thought we were going to lose the occupancy. So if the Courtyard Marriott in town is doing, 65 to 75%, he thought we would, be 5-10% below that. And so at the end of the day, that puts kind of a cap on how much revenue you can generate, which impacts directly your net operating income, which at the end of the day impacts, once you divide that by your cap rate, that's the value of the property. And if we're buying something at 3.3, we're sticking $2 million into it, right? We're trying to reposition it, stabilize it, do some cool things, deliver a great guest experience, ideally outpace or become one of the best hotels in this entire market. I think it's dying for a boutique hotel. So lots of good demand signals. But if we can do all of that, then we win. But our underwriting, our pro forma shows that, again, we can climb to probably $1.6 million in gross revenue pretty quickly. And then over a few years, we can top out or maybe even exceed $2 million. Remember, our property in 2018 already did $1.8 million. And it kind of is in pretty rough shape, quite frankly. It's a pretty tired, old, rundown product. So we think hitting $2 million top line is doable. This particular capital group said, you know what? I've looked at all your assumptions. I like everything that you're doing. I'm just not comfortable getting past 1.6 million bucks in gross revenue. And therefore, it puts a cap on your net operating income, which in turn puts a cap on your valuation. So when we go for a liquidity event to refinance or eventually sell, we take a look at how much money did we make for investors, how much money did we make for ourselves as GPs. Even if you gave me 5, 10, 20%, hell, go all the way up 50% of, the GP. If there were equal partners in this deal with more conservative assumptions, it's just less juicy. And then all of a sudden, again, I think their end analysis was just the juice is not worth the squeeze. We'd have to come in, we'd put our reputation on the line, we'd put our investor capital on the line. And what if at the end of this, we made like 100 grand, 200 grand? That's just not enough over like 5, 7, 10-year time horizon. Now, again, super respectful conversation, great candid feedback. I think we can both agree on different versions of the future, and one of us will probably be right. And they're definitely cheering for us and hoping that we're successful. At the same time, we need to pay attention, right, to some of their conservatism. What happens if this project tops out at 1.6? What will happen to our investor returns? Like, I don't want to spend tens of thousands of my time and energy or your time and energy, Micah, to just have, basically come out with $50,000. Like, this has to be a home run shot to be able to put this kind of time, effort, and risk into this project. So anyways, that's kind of summarizing one side. Again, maybe you can talk a little bit about the big institutional shop, $4.7 billion under management. They have some really cool hospitality guys that we met. Why don't you tell them a little bit about what we learned there?
Yeah. And before I jump to them, I think the big thing to speak on is, the group that we talked to that you just mentioned, they were, more than willing to look over other deals with us. If we had any other deals that we were working on, they would love to hear about them. So it's not that they, did not want to work with us, but this particular deal and the numbers that were ran just didn't kind of fit their conservative approach. So that to me was very reassuring, especially as we move forward in the future to deal 2 and so on. But to get back to, this very large corporation, I guess you can call it, with $4.7 billion under management, they, again, love the deal, love the location. They wanted to get more of their people on board. For example, we had contractor bids. They wanted to get their contractors to bid on the project, but he said, being that you guys are where you are in the deal, it would take 2 to 3 weeks to even get one of our contractors out to the property, and we just don't want to waste your time or anybody else's time. So what it ultimately came down to for this group is, if they would have met us 6 months earlier, they would have been more than willing to be a partner on this deal. Another thing that they said is, especially because this is our first deal, we don't have that much experience, we're definitely going to learn along the way. They would want to come in almost like a JV, so like a 50-50 partner, at least for the first deal. And as we did more deals together, or me and Adam just did more deals and had more experience in general, they would be able to kind of go lower on the equity because there was a level of trust and a proof of concept there. So I think that's something that hit home with me because, even investors and groups, they're looking at this deal and they're saying, okay, this is great. The numbers look great, but you guys are first time operators. We don't know what's going to happen. And truly, Adam and I don't know what we don't know. So that's part of the game. I understand, there's a little bit more of a kind of tax to pay when you're a novice, but they, again, loved our ideas, loved our numbers, and they would love to work with us in the future. But ultimately it just came down to kind of having that relationship, having the connection early on versus kind of late in the deal where, kind of time is of the essence and they can't take their time to get things done the way they would prefer. So needless to say, we had 2 large capital groups that could have been partners in the deal, but they ended up backing out. So that was a little bit of a heartbreak, but even still, we are very confident that we can raise the money needed. And like our coach has said, we're literally one handshake, one conversation away from just getting to the amount of kind of capital we need, getting the partnership we need, and getting this deal across the finish line. So I do believe that it's happened in the past, and I know it can happen again. We just need to keep pounding the pavement, don't give up, too close to finishing to give up now. So I think we have to push even harder than we did before to make sure we see this deal all the way through.
Yep. And look, advice to you guys, you're going to meet a different cast of characters. Like this is the Micah and Adam movie on, the Wesley Hotel, and these are the supporting actors, or some of them are NPCs. Like we're just not sure who's going to turn into, main characters or maybe even partners with us. But like, you might be under contract or in your own story, in your own movie. And I just encourage you to DM, to reach out to, again, Micah, I've kind of been semi-obsessed with Soli and the Terra Palm Springs Hotel. It's wellness oriented. She's under contract on a second hotel. Like I reached out to her the other day and we like exchanged messages. Like these people that maybe you're learning from on YouTube, they're real people and they're doing deals and they're probably looking for capital, or, again, they might be able to offer some support or guidance. So I think just the power of networking, the power of asking questions, and man, like talk about a great vertical to be in. We're in hospitality. You have people that love to serve and give back and help others. They genuinely, in their hearts, like it gives them purpose and meaning and fulfillment when they see that they've delivered something of value to someone else. So we're in a brilliant vertical with great people willing to give back, coach, and advise. And honestly, I'm learning a ton, even in these conversations where people are saying no. Like for example, Brad, without naming the group, he was teaching me about GOP. I had never even heard that term. It's not in our spreadsheet. Our curriculum advisors has not talked about that. Gross operating profit, basically like what's controllable. Take your revenue, back out some of like your controllable costs. How much profit are you seeing? And again, understanding that, a luxury hotel might be 25 to 30% GOP, and world-class operators with a limited service hotel like ours could probably be doing 45 to 50. When he grabbed our spreadsheet, our numbers and our assumptions, with a lot of bad assumptions, quite frankly, because we haven't done this before, he said we were showing a 56% GOP, which was just a huge red flag to them. Again, we just don't know what we don't know, but we're getting feedback and education along the way about, oh, you guys put down $15 per occupied room for cleaning. That needs to be 9. And just even changing that one number shifts like our pro forma by a couple percentage points. So anyways, like we're off, we're too conservative over here, we're too aggressive over here. But every day I feel like we're dialing in our underwriting with better and better assumptions. And obviously, if we can move on from one hotel to a second to a third, we'll just get sharper and better and more informed and be more mature and just have more rules of thumb about, like I think of in the Airbnb game, if I could predict, okay, this property is going to do $75,000 in gross revenue, like I know about half of that will flow down to net profit. Just going to burn up through cleaners and, all these things. So there's these shorthands, right? In every industry, in every vertical, things that you've probably learned in the short-term rental space. Those same things exist in commercial. You just probably don't know what they are at this point. So anyways, all that to say, keep reaching out to people, keep learning. The no's are just not today, not yet. I'm going to go try and meet Brad when I'm in Alabama or Florida over Christmas, for some tacos. We're going to go see, the other capital partner in Hawaii, next spring break. We're scheduled to go to Maui. This guy happens to be there. Guess what? I'm going to happen to be there. So anyways, you're hearing Adam and Micah's movie and our story, and these are the people and the characters in our world. I bet you anything that you'll meet different characters, but they're going to be able to guide you, to give you invaluable feedback. And even if they can't help you, they might lead you to someone that can. And quite frankly, 64 no's have led us to the 65th yes on the debt side. And again, we're improving our equity position every single day.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And the one thing I want to point out is, these people, they seem like idols or, just very famous people.
Legends.
Yeah, that we're like, there's no way they could talk to us. But literally every person that we've seen as an idol, they have been so willing and so friendly to just help give us resources any way that they know how. And like you said, this is the world of hospitality. And in the grand scheme, it's a very small industry and a lot of people know each other. So the ability to help and develop those relationships goes a long way. So, we've shown tons of passion and just energy when we talk to these individuals, and they've been more than willing to give us other connections to someone who may be able to help us. So this is literally the game of relationships. And while it may not help with deal one, these people will definitely be around for deal two and deal three. So it's just a matter of nurturing those relationships. So
Yep,
uh,
that's
with that being
beautiful.
said, with that being said, I do want to transition maybe really quickly to we've also had some experiences with our SEC attorney in the past week, and just wanted to hear maybe your thoughts and your comments on what that has looked like, because I know that I received a 49-page subscription booklet with our SEC attorney saying, please look over this and let me know what needs to be changed. Me having no SEC
Cool. I got you, bro.
law experience. Exactly. I'm supposed to be telling our lawyer what changes need to be made. So just want to hear kind of your thoughts and your experience dealing with an SEC attorney and kind of drafting a PPM and so forth.
Yeah, look, so, we opted to go with Gene Trowbridge. So again, kind of a longtime syndicator, has literally written a book and is close to Matt from the DeRosia group. So again, I heard Bigger Pockets podcast and picked up Matt's book on raising private capital. And one of the bonus episodes was an interview with Gene. And Gene happened to be a Golden Gopher. Go Gophers. I'm an alum. He's an alum. And that was enough just to
Minnesota.
go, dude, this guy basically I don't want to say got bored, but like he needed to change the scenery after being a professional syndicator, wearing all the hats, sitting in all the possible seats. He decided at, I think, like age 45, something like that, he went back to law school and he specialized in SEC law. And this is all he does now is he advises people syndicating, putting together money to make sure that we're doing it in the right way. And so anyways, we talked to some other SEC attorneys. There are some that the BHS group kind of recommends or has previous relationships with. But at the end of the day, it's your choice as an operator to go interview, kind of vet, and then decide on who you want to go for. But let's call it, $10 to $15,000 to draft up a whole set of documents, a couple inches thick, that hopefully you never need, quite frankly. So these are long, lengthy documents basically sharing with investors like, hey, you're making an investment. This could go sideways. And again, you stick in 100 grand, you could lose all of it. Now, again, these guys have pro formas, they've got a story, they've got spreadsheets. Again, most operators are going to be more true, and successful than not. But what if you do if you're not? What if you do if somebody put in 100 grand and then they want that 100 grand back? This is an illiquid asset class. What if, Micah or Adam wins the lottery and moves to Puerto Rico or gets hit by a bus, God forbid? You think of succession. So there's just all of these different flavors of disagreements or what do we do if? And so again, we need clear operating agreements. We need subscription agreements. We need a private placement memorandum. So these are all fancy documents, lengthy documents that more or less feel boilerplate at, again, first blush. I'm sure different SEC attorneys have like their flavors of this, but really we're putting our deal and our information into this. And then at least he can pose questions to us and ask us about what are you going to do if this happens, or tell me, again, the waterfall structure that we're going for, special clauses about who can buy, who out. So anyways, it's a lot to read. It's a little intimidating. Just thinking through GP shares, LP shares, preferred shares, like it's a new world. I do feel like, again, this is maybe a community college class or an MBA class in SEC attorney and syndication stuff. But look, again, we've been talking to investors. We haven't taken any money. Right. So again, there are many, many rules that you need to adhere to make sure that you're kind of doing this right. And he's helping us make, different decisions about Reg D and what does 506B look like versus 506C? What does crowdfunding look like? Can you generally solicit? Can you not? what constitutes a security, how can you, again, make sure that you're doing things ethically and above board and in the right way so that nothing's going to kind of blow back. Because it's literally, one of the first points that I took home is you are a fiduciary. It is your responsibility to take care of LP money and to literally put them first. GP gets paid on the back end, the general partner and kind of the sponsor. Yes, there's fees and promote and all of this, but like your first obligation is to be a great steward, a great protector of capital. And if we're saying we're going to get 20% IRR for our investors, I want to do everything in my damn power to make sure that this is a great investment for them. Anyway, all that to say, an intimidating experience, I guess, is maybe the adjective or describing word at this point. But, heck, maybe we can even ask Gene if he'd be willing to join us and again, share some of his experience working with us or on previous deals. But the dude's a legend in the field. I'm learning a lot, but I would say it's not intuitive. And thank goodness for some AI tools.
For sure. I mean, absolutely. You've kind of hit the nail on the head. Like it's a lot. It's more than I anticipated initially, but we're learning a lot. And I think it's one of those things like everything else, you just have to get your reps. It's hard this time. The next time we do it, it'll be even easier. We know what to expect and it just gets easier. But if we were to stop right here, it would be all for naught. Oh, I'm very, very excited to be going through this process. I would love to have him on the podcast. I think that would be such a great and insightful experience, especially for the listeners to kind of hear what it looks like from a security standpoint, what can and cannot qualify as kind of an offering, and what you can and cannot do before certain documents are drawn up, which is a really good way to keep you out of legal trouble if some stuff hits the fan. So,
Yep,
yeah, for
exactly.
sure.
Exactly. And look, just timeline, we're hoping to have all of that stuff dialed in this week. So
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
timeline and macro, like we met him, I don't know, a couple months ago. And anyways, like have had several conversations with him, several drafts and iterations of these documents, and we're closing in on finalizing some of these. But some of this comes down to like, okay, who owns what? What are the equity shares? And since again, we don't have all of the jigsaw puzzle pieces like filled out. Some of this stuff, again, we're working with our advisors, our attorney to figure out the right way to structure this to lock in kind of what we know and what's true today, and then to give us some optionality and some flexibility in the future. Again, if you remember back on our specific deal, if we can buy it for 3.3 and we've got a term sheet from a bank willing to give us $4 million, not only can we buy the property, but we've already got some working capital or some money for renovation. In a couple weeks, again, talking to some of the investors we've been in dialogue with, as well as new investors, right? We're going to be asking for wires and money after these documents are kind of in place and we've kind of got the formal offering. So, anyways, a lot to learn, but every day I feel like we're a little closer. But dude, yesterday was a milestone, man. Like it was a test. I don't know if we passed it. I mean, chronologically, we passed it. The grade is still outstanding. We'll find out if it's an A or an F later because it doesn't feel like it's gonna be average. It literally feels like one of 2 outcomes, but we're
For
swinging
sure.
with all of our might for an A,
For
and I
sure.
have belief. Again, huge thanks to you, man, for all the support. Every day, I think we're getting better, we're getting closer, so
Yep.
any
That's
closing
right.
thoughts before man, we were supposed to yeah, this was gonna be a short one, and look at us.
Yeah, I mean, no, I mean, I'm just excited to continue the journey. Closing thought I would have is just, you gotta be clear in your mind first about what you want. And when you get very clear on what you want, why you want it, the goals you're pursuing, I think that makes everything else so much easier. So I'm just excited to keep pushing forward. We're getting closer and closer every day, and I know that this will be a great product. So that's all I got.
Amazing, man. Amazing. Okay, well, I'll see if I can survive until the next, show or 2. My wife's headed to Vietnam, so solo dad,
Man,
me and Oliver hanging out at the house. So wish us luck, and again, thank you, to our entire audience who's tuning in, following our story. Again, next week, we're gonna be back on with some additional students, part of the BHS community to hear their stories, their background, where they're at today. So thanks again for tuning in, following this along. You want to learn more about us, about this topic, DM us, reach out. If you're interested in joining the community, again, we can put you in touch with people. So this goes from a concept or just watching people on YouTube or, or Instagram or your favorite podcast player to like reality. You're not that far away. And anyways, we hope that this episode is hopefully a little inspiring, hopefully a little educational, hopefully a little funny too. And with that, we'll close out today's podcast. So thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next one.